welcome to session 1450, the JGS Leadership Seminars Part 2. Once again, your moderator will be Ken Bravo, the president of IEJGS. There are some handouts if you want to download them. And again, we ask you to please put all your questions in the Q&A and just save the chat for saying hello. Thank you, Ken. It's all yours.
Bonnie, thank you very much, and welcome to all of you for joining us today. Our first speaker is Sylvia Abrams. Sylvia Abrams is a past president, the immediate past president of the Jewish Genealogy Society of Cleveland. She's professor emeritus and former dean of the Siegel College here in Cleveland. And I'm going to cut the introduction short and just add to that I asked her to speak today on getting and keeping volunteers because I noticed that when she was president of the JGS in Cleveland, she had a particular knack for doing that. So Sylvia, we're going to turn it over to you, and then we'll come back in 20 minutes for the Q&A. Again, please put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. Sylvia, take it away.
Thank you, Ken. And hi, everybody. It's nice to have you all on, though I'm going to assume that you are in some type of leadership position or will be becoming a leader in your particular Jewish Genealogy Society. What I'm going to do today is talk about keeping and getting volunteers, because the getting is the first part, the keeping is the key to not having to do this over and over again. I'll be going through three main things. Who do you want to recruit? What kinds of tasks might attract them? Creating a volunteer-friendly JGS. Let me give you a little background on why this became an issue in Cleveland, and you may have the same thing in your areas. The JGS in Cleveland is made up of about 120 to 140 members. The majority are here in Cleveland. We have about 20 out-of-town members. Our membership, like everything else in the country, is filled with many baby boomers who are slowly but steadily aging. At the same time, we are slowly but steadily getting younger people into the group who have gotten interested in their family roots, maybe through a family trip to Europe or because of a Judaic studies class they took in university. So we have a very disparate age group in our organization, with the majority on the older side, but still a nice number who are in the younger side. And in our JGS, we're about half female and half male. So that also makes a difference in thinking about getting and keeping volunteers for different kinds of tasks. So let me start with that, and we're going to now move through. So the one thing I think we need to start with is, who do you want to recruit? And when you think about that, you need to think about your membership in general and what makes sense. So if many of the tasks you want to get people involved in are those where you need a genealogical background, then of course you want to get experienced genealogists who have expertise. So an example in our group is we have two members who are on the board of Litvak Sig, and we have used them a great deal to help to privately mentor individuals in that area. We also have an individual who really knows the county archive in our community. And when people need help with that, we look for her to provide expertise. Then the next thing is you want to think of individuals with managerial or administrative experience from their previous careers. And here I think it's really important when someone becomes a member that you ask something about their backgrounds. Do you know what previous careers they were involved in? We recently saw that a new member from out of town is an experienced librarian. And as far as we know, at the moment, we only have one retired librarian in our group. We have a library that's housed in a synagogue, and we really need some expertise from some members who can volunteer and help. So that's an example of really needing to know what people have done in the past. And if they have managerial or administrative experience, some of the tasks and some of the officerships require that kind of background rather than genealogy. A third need, of course, is individuals with welcoming or outgoing personalities, because in order to get, if the volunteer work is to make your membership feel happy that they've come to a meeting, they can't walk in, have to find their membership tags, if you have them, by themselves and just find a seat. They need to have someone who will be happy to make them part of the group. Then, as I mentioned in my introduction, it's very important to have individuals from all age groups in your membership. And then another thing you might think about is individuals from the various regions that are part of your membership. So though our organization is the Jewish Genealogy Society of Cleveland, we have members from all the various suburbs, including the west side of Cleveland, and we have members from the nearby counties and some of the smaller towns. For example, Akron and Youngstown, Ohio, they belong to our group. As well as I've mentioned that we have out-of-towners. And I think for the group to be welcoming, one of the things is not to find that everybody lives in the same suburb and belongs to the same synagogue. And then, of course, the issue of old timers and newer members. Sometimes a newer member will bring a very fresh look to what you want to do. So then what kinds of tasks might attract volunteers? And you're going to notice that a lot of these things may seem to you trivial, but they're really not, because they're the way to have the low-hanging fruit that will make somebody be willing to be a member of the organization. So the first one are greeters at meetings. And you may think to yourself, greeters at meetings? What does that have to do with anything? Well, there are so many individuals who come to a JGS meeting because they've maybe read in the paper or on your website or on your Facebook page about a topic, and they walk in. And if they walk in and they don't see any familiar faces, this may be the first, last, and only time you'll ever see them, and they might not necessarily take out a membership. Depending on your group, your meetings may be open to the general public or open with a very small fee to somebody who's not a member. So one of the things we started was having greeters at the meetings, and their special task was for anybody who signed in on the guest list, not on the regular membership list, to come up to them, to make them welcome, to show them where the refreshments were, and to bring them over to sit next to somebody who they knew would take them under their wing and speak to them, because otherwise this person will sit like a lump at the meeting. So that's the first one. We then opened, as part of being more welcoming to others, a help desk at our meeting. And this was an idea from the president before me in our tenure, but she had only used board members. We started to have the help desk be able to be staffed by any member of the group who had expertise. And one of the things that was very important, we placed the help desk in a location where it was easy to find, with a large sign, and where there were some chairs right in front of it. And that way, people volunteered to staff the help desk and others came to use it. Another thing that's a good way to get volunteers is photography. And in our digital world where everybody has a good camera on the phone, it's very easy to find people to volunteer for this. Again, it's low-hanging fruit and will get people involved. The next level up is to get someone to become a member of a committee. And you may think, oh, I can't get anybody to chair a committee. How could I get somebody to be a member of a committee? Well, sometimes it's much easier to get someone to be a member than to be a chair. Our bylaws say that we should have a membership committee and a program committee. And the program committee is the one where we've had the most success in getting volunteers, because that committee has been asked to brainstorm what should be offered as programs. And if we're lucky, maybe one of them will volunteer to take charge of that particular program. But when they're asked to be a member of the committee, they're not told, well, if you're a member of this committee, you'll have to be in charge of something. It's just, we would like your input. So we've used members for the program committee, for the membership committee. And when we were hosts last year for the IAJGS, we were able to get all kinds of people who were willing to staff our table at the IAJGS. In fact, we had 25 volunteers who offered to go downtown and do that because it seemed to them a light risk effort for them, and they could help the organization. Another place to use volunteers is having for your JGS to be represented at some local community events. Our Jewish Community Federation has an Israel Independence Day large event. Most of the organizations in the community take a table. We've begun to do that. It's a way to increase our visibility. The other place where we've begun to take a table is we have cemetery cleanups at the more neglected cemeteries that are sponsored by the Jewish Community Federation, and that allows us to have individuals who care about cemetery and their own family graves become involved in that particular setting. And the other one that we found is very important is writing for the newsletter. A person who may be very quiet and not outgoing in other ways can turn out to be a very good writer. I mentioned while we were getting ready for this session that we had a new young member who had had a great experience in Europe on a fellowship and came back to Cleveland to get her first job. And because of that fellowship, she was very interested in sharing her information about her ancestral town that had happened to her as part of that experience. Well, she was willing to write all kinds of articles for our newsletter. She's very computer literate, and it was a great way to use her. So let's talk about creating a volunteer-friendly JGS next. And I think here I've already mentioned a few things, and I want to go through them in more detail. I think one of the things that's so important is to create low-hanging fruit tasks. And here I'll mention something that may seem silly, but turned out that the person felt very good about it. Because of security issues in the places where we meet, we needed to have somebody in the lobby of the particular institution to open the door for individuals. And it had to be someone who we provided, not the security for the institution. And this was different from the greeter in the room where people were coming for the meeting. So one of the low-hanging fruit things we did was find an individual who wasn't very well spoken, but had a nice smile and knew a lot about genealogy. And we gave her that task, and she was very happy to do it and very pleased about it. Similar things like that were obtaining raffle items for our annual membership drawing. There are people who are very willing to do those tasks, and they really unburden the officers and the board so they can do more succinct and more useful and more at their level. I also mentioned in this place the idea of creating clear-cut, short-duration tasks. You can't ask somebody to do something that's going to take months if they've never done anything for you before. And so I think something that can either be done at a meeting, before a meeting, in a matter of a small amount of time is a very good idea. One of the things we started when I was president, in addition to our newsletter, was a research tip of the month. And the research tip of the month is to be between 250 and 300 words. So asking somebody to write that rather than be the editor of the newsletter or write a 1,000-word article for the newsletter, we found there were people who were very willing to do that. It takes them maybe an afternoon at the longest, and they send it to us. We edit it and put it up for our members. So that's a very clear-cut, short-duration task. The thing I'm often asked is, well, how do you get people to sign up? Well, I think there's some tricks on sign-up sheets. First of all, I never passed around a sign-up sheet that didn't already have one person signed up for the task so that I could get more names. And I would walk up to somebody who I knew well, and I'd ask them to either sign up because I really wanted them, or ask them if they would be willing to have their name there so other people would sign up. I never acted disappointed if a sign-up sheet wasn't filled at the first time it was passed around. At the end of the meeting, I would say, "Oh, lovely, we got 3 people for the 12 months we need for this task," and would bring it back at the next meeting, and maybe 3 or 4 more people would sign up. And then I would say, "Oh, great, we have 9 out of the 12." So it took 3 months to get the 12 monthly assignments for that task. I never acted like I was disappointed. And that way, sign-up sheets can work, and they don't walk around and just get passed from the beginning to the end of the row. Then the next question is, where do you ask a person to do something for you? And I think this very much depends on your organization. And of course, right now with COVID, it's making it more difficult. Some people like to be asked in person at your meeting. And you can take them to one side, ask them to do something, and it's much harder to turn you down in person than it is in an email. The second way, of course, is to ask somebody by phoning them. I think email, in terms of asking somebody, is probably would be my third choice, not my first or second choice, because then it's much easier for the person to turn you down because there's no voice. There's no facial interaction. And if it's a big task, you noticed I've marked here the word food. If it's something you really want somebody to be involved with, I think it would be important to ask them to meet you for coffee and talk to them while you eat and drink something and describe the task. It may be time consuming for you as the officer, but in the end, it's another way to get people to feel they're willing to do something for you. In that same mode, I wanted to talk about that for board and committee meetings. When I came into the organization, many of the board meetings were held in one of the public libraries, once in a while in the party room of the apartment building where the person who was the president lived, and often before or after the regular membership meeting in the same room, where people either walked in before while the board meeting was going on and interrupted it, or stayed and talked in the background while the meeting was going on. So one of the decisions I made, and again, this is very much dependent on your community and where everybody lives, is that I would hold as many meetings as possible in my own home. I felt that there was a more conducive atmosphere to people talking with one another, being friendly with one another, and creating social interactions around the tasks that they had to do for the organization. And it worked not only for the board, but when we went to committee meetings for the program committee, we found that it was a very good idea to do the same thing, either around my dining room table and my family room, but always with some food, because that was a really good way to make people welcome. And if a particular officer or president can't do it in his or her own home, to try to find a place where food can be part of the meeting, because again, I think it changes the atmosphere in some ways. The other thing is, well, I ask somebody to do something and they don't remember it. So I think one of the things that's very important is to remind people in a friendly manner. And not to say, "Oh, I see you're not ready to do such and such." I think it's much more important, here again, email, a text, a phone call, but something very friendly to let them know that they're a part of what needs to be done. And in that sense, besides reminding them, I always would send out before the meeting a list of all the tasks that people had to do in a group email to the whole group, so that nobody was identified and called out as, "Well, that's the person I'm sure will forget." So I think that's a very important thing. And lastly, as I put on this slide, thanking, and thanking again. I don't think we appreciate how much people want to be appreciated. So I tried to thank them in person, thank them at the JGS meeting as part of the agenda for the meeting, whether it was something they had done at that meeting or at another time. Thank them in our newsletter, in my president's message, and thank them on the website. Because I think one of the things that many volunteers feel is they're not appreciated. They weren't thanked for what they needed to do, and therefore, why should they do it again? So I think all of these ways are ways that you can create and keep volunteers and use them as a way to search for individuals who become board and officer material. And I think that's really the purpose of these kinds of volunteers, to make it possible for you to have individuals who you have been grooming and then can take positions first on your board and then through your chain of officers. Ken, I'm ready for your question.
Sylvia, thank you very much. And we're now going to move to the Q&A. We do have some questions. One is, what methods do you use to recruit new members? I guess you have to get them to be a member before you can get them to be a volunteer.
All right, so I'll digress for that a little bit. Our board made the decision a long time ago that an individual could come to a meeting without being charged, and we look to see who has shown up at meetings that way, and try to convert them to members. The other thing we do is, besides sending our notices to members, we have a very huge contact list of individuals. On every meeting notice, we try to say at the bottom, if you know if this may be of interest to someone else, please bring them to the meeting. We also have a very aggressive, I wouldn't use the word aggressive, forceful membership vice president who really buttonholes everyone she can about this. And we have lots of favors and things that we pass out at community events with our name on it. We've tried very much to increase the visibility of the organization, which helps get new members.
Okay. Question from Sonia. Do you have any suggestions for recruiting volunteers who have specific skills in using technology tools?
That one I found is quite tricky. We have been able to really work with that mostly now that we're doing Zoom, where the president our present president found that we needed several Zoom moderators, and he really reached out into the membership asking for people. We asked for volunteers, and we've now found 3 or 4 people who are willing to be Zoom moderators and co-hosts in that area. But again, you have to keep asking. If you get turned down the first time, you need to ask again. You need to ask members, do you know of somebody who has this particular talent? And they'll bring you towards someone. And the first time, give them a small task. Don't ask them to run your website as their first technology task.
Okay. Next question we have from Jay. How do you handle a volunteer who is not working out well?
Aha. Well, the volunteer who I described, who now is the person we were using in the lobby for the security, was someone who we had tried to give some other tasks to, because the individual was very anxious to help us and really supposed to pretty much flubbed everything up to then. But we didn't want to lose her as a membership. So I thanked the person so much for what she'd been doing. And I said, I thought I had a better niche. And I think that's one of the ways to move somebody out, is to say, I think we have a better niche for you. The other thing you can do, of course, is to say, we try to have everything time bound so someone else can have a turn at doing this task. So we'd like to thank you. And often in those cases, give them a small gift.
Okay. Next question we have, do you have any experience of upskilling volunteers within your organization?
Yes. We, particularly in both membership and the program committee, we have looked for individuals who did a very nice job in suggesting things and running a program for us in the background. So the first thing we've done is have somebody who helped us put together a local program. We asked them to be the liaison with the local college where we do a program. And then we've asked that person as the next task to be in touch with an outside speaker from another city. And what we're really doing is trying to groom that person to become the program vice president from doing these tasks. So yes, I think there are ways you can work your way through with a greater and greater responsibility, but not yet being in charge of that whole area.
Okay. So let me try and give you another question here. Ultimately, every organization is looking for new board members and somebody ultimately to serve as officers on the board. How do you interrelate that with your recruiting of volunteers?
Well, the thing is that you first, by having a lot of volunteers and more people than just the officers being seen doing tasks for the organization, being publicly thanked, being in the newsletter, being on the website, you have already given the sense that the organization is not a clique. That's the first thing. The second thing is if once you succeed with the first volunteer for putting them on the board as the next step, people begin to realize that being volunteers is a way that people are being groomed for other jobs. And I think it's a matter of not expecting to do this in 6 months. This takes a several year period, but through this, you will be able to identify individuals who then can first be asked to be a board member and then be brought up through the officers.
Okay. I think we're out of questions. I think I've gone through the list and the Q&A of questions. I'm sorry I can't reward you with food, but I can certainly take away your next bullet point, that one after that. Thank you, and thank you for a wonderful presentation. And I hope everybody understands now why I asked Sylvia to do this. I think she had a number of very good ideas. And I'll be interested in hearing from those of you when you go home and try these ideas and see how they work. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Bonnie, we're ready to switch to the next speaker. Sylvia, you can turn your camera off.
I'm just about to do that.
Okay. Marlis, are you there? Okay. Our next speaker is Marlis Humphrey, and I'm going to give her, I could give her a very long introduction, but I'll give her a short one because she tells me she has a lot to cover today. But Marlis is the immediate past president of the JGS. She's currently the president of the Florida State Genealogical Society and involved in more things than we have time to discuss. She's also very, very good with computers and presentations that I think you'll see shortly. Again, please remember to put your questions in the Q&A. And with no further ado, I will turn this over to Marlis.
Okay, thank you, Ken. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
And let's see, hopefully we're sharing screen. Good. There's probably a delay. Is the screen on?
Yep, it's loaded. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I have to take up some of my time and I know it's short, but I'm just thrilled seeing so many folks from our JGSs online. Billy, Sheila, Sonia, Lawrence, Judith, Kim, Jesse, Debbie, Gary, Jan, Carolyn, Bonnie, Fern, Margarita, Ina, and Nina. Hi to you all. I wish we were all here in person. We could have even more fun together. And I definitely welcome the folks from the newer JGSs from Syracuse, Hanover, Bogota, and Auckland, Wellington. I'm hoping we'll all know you by first name soon too. So let's get started learning about software tools. We're going to talk about 4 different types of software tools during the course of our next half hour. And I'm going to start out first with what I think is absolutely the most important area for societies today. And I want to explore one of these tools in some amount of depth. So probably the first half is talking about that specific tool. And then we're going to move on to exploring a variety of other software tools that will help your society. So this slide's here for a reason. I mean, really more than ever, we live in a visual world, and we are just bombarded with digital images on screens, small and large, just like what we're doing all this week as well, right? We consume information and develop perceptions, and we make assessments with our eyes. So all organizations, JGSs included, have a visual identity, and it's part of your organization's brand. And what a brand is simply what people think of when they think of your organization. What's its personality? What's its value? And as a society, we want to be perceived as being helpful, knowledgeable, encouraging, vibrant, and what we don't want to be perceived as is unwelcoming, cliquish, disorganized, or dowdy. And a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it can set a tone and establish or reinforce a perception of your organization. And the good news is that you have control over your visual identity. But unfortunately, we are genealogists, and too few of us are graphics designers and know how to use Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator or InDesign. So what do we do? Is there a software solution to this common problem? Well, there is. There's a very easy to use tool called Canva. And with Canva, a society can get graphics designer quality results without a graphics designer. And it also helps you to create visual elements many times faster than with traditional methods. And it's free. Here's some examples. Not wanting to embarrass any specific society, here's an example of a flyer for a nonprofit rowing club. And you've probably seen it even from societies, many flyers like this. It was created by some very well-intentioned volunteer who knows how to use Microsoft Word. And the saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, here are the 1,000 words. In fact, there are so many words here that nothing specifically stands out. Here's a second flyer from the same organization, taking a very different approach, a much more visual approach. So which flyer would attract you to joining the club or the society? The one on the left or the one on the right? Here's an example from a website of a Florida-based genealogical society. And here's a website of a different genealogical society in Florida. So if you had to describe the society on the left in 3 words, what would it be? And the same question for the society on the right. Which society would you be most interested in becoming a part of? A visual identity may start with a logo, but it is all the print as well as digital images that are used by the organization. So let's look at an example of a visual identity package. And this specific one is from a Hillel. And just note the consistency in the letterhead, the envelopes, the business cards, the trifold, the table tent cards, and the badges, all those things that are typically printed. What's your perception of this particular organization? Here are a couple of other print items for the same organization. More complex items, but still brand consistent. Here's a brochure and some leave behind cards. And lastly, here are their brand consistent online elements, website banners, Facebook banners, and social media profile thumbnail icons. And here are the choices of approved colors, fonts, and icons that are the only ones that are permitted to be used by this organization, the Hillel. Consistency is what is key. You want to always use the same fonts for the same purposes, the same colors, the same spacing, the same style of photos, and even the same icons. This is very fundamental to developing a good visual identity. And you can have such consistency for your society, whether you have a graphics designer develop the kit for you, or if you develop it for yourself. And Canva is indeed that tool that helps you keep all of your created designs consistent with your brand. So let's look at Canva. It's a drag and drop interface that allows you to create all the items we just looked at and even more, up to 50 different types of designs. So you go into Canva and you select a design, a type of a design, such as a flyer or a Facebook post graphic or a t-shirt graphic, whatever. And you can apply one of their 60,000 templates to get you started, or you can start with a blank canvas. And then you just start dragging and dropping elements in. And some of the elements they have provided for you are up to 2 million photos for you to use and 100,000 icons and illustrations. And additionally, if you have your own photos or graphics, you can add them to your design as well. And something that's always useful, especially if you're working with your own photography, sometimes you want to remove the background. They have a magic background remover. Click and it's done. As a nonprofit, you can apply for a free Canva account, and that free nonprofit Canva account allows you to have up to 10 team members to have full access to your account. And it even includes what they call the Canva Pro upgrade, which provides access to all of their premium images for free. Basically, everything on their site is free under this particular licensing arrangement. You have one shared graphics workspace for all your society that's working on those materials. All your marketing materials can be there. Your whole visual identity set of elements are in the cloud, and each team member can access them and can add to them. Once you get a nonprofit Canva Pro account, one of the first things you want to do is to set up your brand kit. So let's look at that. When I joined the IAJGS, 2013, circa around that time frame, I was tasked with creating a flyer. And I had to ask the question, who has the logo? And after several emails and several days, I was sent a fuzzy, distorted, egg-shaped logo that originally was round. So many of you, has this ever happened to you? I suspect it has. Your brand kit in Canva is where you keep your high resolution, good quality logo. And you can upload it in as many versions as you need. And typically these are going to be full color, white only, black only, and all on a transparent background so that you can place them on colored backgrounds. Then you select your fonts from one of the 700 font sets that are available on Canva, or if you have fonts that are not already on Canva, you can upload your own. And then lastly, you set your colors, and you'll need to know your color codes, but you can set your full palette of colors that are brand consistent for you. So now that you have your brand kit on Canva, whoever on your team is creating the next flyer or the next Facebook post can create it with brand consistency and doesn't have to ask, as I did, who has the logo. This is really key. This is how Canva can save you many hours of volunteer time. Think about the materials you had to create for your most recent society event, and that's whether it was an in-person or even an over Zoom event. How much time actually went into that? So this is an example from the Florida State Genealogical Society. We held an all-day virtual conference last fall, a DNA day, and we needed to get the word out. In order to get the word out, we needed the graphics. We needed a MailChimp banner. We needed a GoToWebinar banner. We needed a website banner. We needed a Facebook ad. We needed a Facebook event banner. We needed a Facebook post graphic. We needed a Twitter post graphic and a PowerPoint title slide. 8 different versions of the same essential graphic just for that specific event. Just researching what is the current size requirements for each of these 8 different versions of graphics, such as what is Facebook posts recommended size and resolution these days, can take a huge chunk of your time. Then, after you understand what resolutions you need, and dimensions you need, then you have to relay out all of these and resize the fonts. I mean, it's a huge time sink. Canva keeps track of all these current size requirements for all of those things that I've mentioned above. So you don't need to spend any time at all researching them or looking them up. All you have to do basically is click on Canva's resize button and select the type of element that you want it resized for. And so in this case, once I created the original design to get the other 7 different sized versions, it took me less than 15 minutes. And if you want, with the resize button, it also even allows you to create a custom size if needed. This is a huge time saver. Let's look at another example of how Canva will keep your society looking good in just a few minutes of your time. One of the 50 types of graphics you can create are Zoom virtual backgrounds. And I was watching in the chat earlier, many of you are using Zoom these days. So this may be something you're already doing. If not, here's another tip to make that experience even better and more brand consistent. This too is part of your virtual identity. There are many cool Zoom virtual backgrounds to choose from, and I chose one just to get me started, and then I actually deleted the image off of it. And what I was trying to do is basically just to start the design from scratch, but still retain the correct dimensions for a Zoom virtual background, and Canva already provided that. So then I'm able to set the background color. I wanted to do something very clean and simple. I wanted to set the background color using our JGS brand kit, which I was able to select from the brand colors on the left. And then I go to my folder with my logos in it, and I'm able to drag and drop the right logo that I want. And I decided I want the white on transparent, and I add that, just drag it over. And now we've got a brand consistent Zoom virtual background for our society presentations. And as you can see on the top right, there's a download button. You download it from Canva, you upload it into Zoom, and it's just that simple. And it costs nothing to give Canva a try. It will save you and your team hours of time, and it will help ensure your society's visual identity represents you well. Canva is easiest to use on a browser, but there's also an app that works on a tablet or a smartphone. A little bit harder to maneuver, but in a pinch, it will help, especially if you're just doing a simple edit or a change to one of your graphics. And Canva works in many languages, including those right to left languages, including Hebrew. So enough about Canva. Another tool that helps you with your visual identity is Whimsical. Whimsical is a collaborative visual workspace tool for teams, and it allows your society to create things like flowcharts, diagrams, virtual sticky notes, and more. So a website's a key piece of your virtual identity or visual identity. And so maybe you're redesigning your website. One of the ways of doing that is to sketch out what that's going to look like. It's called wireframing. And with this tool, you can easily wireframe your new website design. You can create your society org chart very simply. Oftentimes those things are hard to draw or a pain to draw using tools like PowerPoint. It's much easier and whimsical. You can capture your board or your committee brainstorming sessions using these tools. And then, say your org chart or whatever for your projects, you can publish it as part of your society materials. You've got a nice clean drawing, or you can just use it and keep it for your internal society notes. 60% of all websites globally are built using WordPress. It supports a drag and drop interface and templates that are highly fresh, modern, and visual, as well as very simple to maintain. And I know many of our JGSs have moved over to WordPress, and I'm hoping all of them end up on WordPress at some point in time. And what's also awesome about WordPress is because of the large community supporting it, many other third-party tools that streamline your back office operations, like MailChimp, for example, and your MailChimp contacts database interface very easily into WordPress. There's lots of third-party interfaces and plugins. We started out saying that it's a visual world. For the rest of this talk, I want you to focus on one other very important trend for our societies. It's also a digital world, and many organizations, both whether they're for-profits or nonprofits, are undertaking, as they call it, digital transformation projects to improve both their efficiency and effectiveness. And your society can, and hopefully is already, if not should be, doing the same. And I'm going to take you through some additional tools that will help you with your digital transformation. So let's continue by looking at some of these digital transformation tools that will help you. In this case, the next section is promoting your society and attracting members. MailChimp, a great tool for digital email marketing. Your society can create a very simple drag and drop e-newsletter with self-subscribe and recipient reporting. MailChimp will tell you who received the email, newsletter, or just general society email, who unsubscribed, when and how many times an individual opened it, what time of day it was opened, and if you had links in your email or newsletter, what links were clicked on and how many times. And these analytics can help you create email and e-newsletters that have more engagement and more impact with your members and your prospective members. To improve your efficiency, MailChimp can be set up to post automatically to social media each time your newsletter or other email campaign goes out. It will automatically send out a post to Facebook or Twitter, depending on how you set it up. And just recently, MailChimp, with its nice, simple drag and drop, nice visual HTML type of interface without having to know HTML, they added the capability to also create simple websites. So that may be a step for some of you who are not ready yet to perhaps go into WordPress, but need something more visual than what your current website provides. So here's another tool, Eventbrite. Stop guessing how many people are going to show up for your special lecture or workshop or other event without having a volunteer charged with having to receive all the RSVP emails and all the RSVP phone calls. So if you use Eventbrite, no more do you have to lament after the event. I wish we would have collected the attendees' emails so we can invite them to our next meeting. If you set this up, you can have registrations, you can have ticketing, and the ticketing can be free tickets or for pay tickets. And there's other management tools also. It hooks into MailChimp and SurveyMonkey and other things as well. And Eventbrite also lists and promotes your event as well on their website for your local area. SurveyMonkey is a tool that helps you collect information from your members, get feedback from your attendees at one of your recent events, or information for a planned society preservation project. And so these are just some examples of surveys you may want to conduct. And with a tool like SurveyMonkey, you can survey your prospective members or other folks, people on your Facebook page, etc., and that information will help you make better informed board decisions for your society. Buffer. Buffer is a tool similar to Hootsuite and HubSpot. You may have heard of those. It's a tool that your society can use to manage its social media calendar and program. Using a tool like Buffer means that your volunteers will spend less time and less effort in order to stay up on top of pumping out a steady stream of social media posts and social media engagement. Buffer will allow you to measure your performance, to create reports and get insights that will help you grow your reach, your engagement, and grow ultimately new members for your society. Facebook Ad Manager. This is not Facebook itself, but specifically the ad manager of Facebook, is a Facebook tool that helps you to create, schedule, and pay for and track the effectiveness of your society's Facebook ads. If you're not using Facebook ads, you absolutely should, especially for your next event. They are amazingly low cost, and they're a highly effective way you can target specifically who you want to attract for your next event. It's a way to find and engage a new audience of prospective members for your society. And this tool helps you to manage those ads. If you're not already using it, you've likely heard about Zoom. With Zoom, your society can conduct online board meetings, online program meetings, host remote speakers, hold webinars and virtual conferences. And you can also use Zoom's record capability to create a great society video for posting to your society YouTube channel or for streaming your session live over your Facebook page. There is a 40-minute session limit on a free account in Zoom, but nonprofits can get Zoom discounts. YouTube is a great way for your society to be discovered. It is the second largest search engine after Google. The how-to type of videos on YouTube are one of the top viewed categories on YouTube. So you can create a YouTube Society channel of helpful videos to attract and engage a new audience. And you can use Zoom to easily create those videos. Let's shift to a different category of software tools. These are tools that help you attract and keep volunteers. So would you like to use WordPress but don't have a volunteer with the skills or the time? Same question for Facebook Ad Manager or Buffer to run your social media program. Hire an intern. Many will work for free or a small amount, such as $12.50 an hour. Societies can post to find an intern, and this is US only right now, but you can post to find an intern at over 1,000 colleges in the US. Students are searching for experiences to add to their resume, such as developing a new website, editing a new e-newsletter or society journal, running your social media campaign, or more. Use Sign Up Genius to organize your volunteers for your next project or event. Avoid piles of emails going back and forth to figure out who's doing what or who's bringing what. And you can print a summary report of the sign-up status, who has signed up for what and when. And Sign Up Genius even sends out reminders to those who have signed up for various activities. And now for our last, whoops, I think, did I miss one? Hold on, let's see. Nope, we're good. Now for our last category of tools, software tools that help a society manage all it does with less time and effort. A very easy to use tool, but very time-saving is Doodle. You can use Doodle to take a poll on what is the best date for your next board meeting. Use Doodle to conduct votes, such as board email votes. Similar to the tool previously, it helps you eliminate all those back and forth reply all emails and seeing everybody over and over. TechSoup. Do not purchase software or hardware or technology services for your society with first checking out TechSoup. Originally, it was only available for US nonprofits, but TechSoup now offers technology discounts and also some free donations to charities in many countries. You want a discount on Zoom or QuickBooks or the latest Microsoft Office products or Photoshop or even the entire Adobe Creative Cloud suite or Amazon Web Services for cloud storage or more. What about in the hardware realm, a new laptop from Dell or a new Dell tablet or a ViewSonic digital projector? These things are on TechSoup, and indeed it may save you a lot. Cloud storage is so important these days, and you'll see that one of the handouts that is available here is an assessment of comparative table of the various cloud storage solutions. Dropbox is one of those tools that will enable your society to store all of your society documents in the cloud for easy access by all board members. All board members should be able to get to your bylaws, your meeting minutes, your strategic plan, your event plans, and more. And they can easily do that if they're in such a single place that everybody can get to. So look at Dropbox or some of its alternatives and pay for it over TechSoup with their discount. Trello. Trello is the best way to stay on top of your society's projects. You can capture the results of your society's strategic planning and annual operating plan. You can place it on a Trello dashboard to monitor everything visually. And you can manage and see then visually, do I have a mix of activities for our society, the various important mission-related categories? Is there a balance of the workload of the various team members and volunteers? What things are coming due? You can record things in a parking lot that can be addressed later. And you can use Trello to set your board agendas. You can use Trello as well to link all your relevant society documents, hopefully stored in the cloud, in a very meaningful way. And you can use Trello as a visual map when you're onboarding new volunteers or new board members. You can use it to go through all the things that they need to know about your society. Salesforce. Use Salesforce to empower your society leadership team to fund and run their entire mission with one integrated platform. And this is where you enter the data from your last event, or you import your Eventbrite attendance and registrations into Salesforce. And then you manage the prospective members as you work to convert them to members, volunteers, and donors. And similarly, you keep track of all of your community partners, their contact information, and your interactions and agreements with them. And this helps you eliminate all those various spreadsheets and Word documents, and you can manage all of your constituent data on one platform where you can easily access it and analyze it to drive your growth. Tableau is one of the top 2 data visualization tools owned by Salesforce, and it gives you a visual look at Salesforce data or any spreadsheets. And this helps you in a visual way to inform your board decisions to drive impact and growth of your society. Sometimes it's just too hard to describe something in email, and Loom is a tool that allows you to solve that problem. You can record yourself or your screen or app, and your society members can view what you've recorded on their time, your video message, and they can post their comments, and they can even tag them to a specific time on the playout. Mural. During the pandemic, many of us have to meet virtually like this, and we need whiteboard collaboration tools to do so. Mural is a tool that you can do exactly that online. Google Voice. Google Voice is a way to allow your members to publish, have a phone that they can call, and it can be published without having to publish a specific board member's private phone number. And you can get a free phone number from Google Voice, and you can have that auto forward to a real phone or just go to email. There'll be a transcript, there'll be a link you can click on to actually hear the voice recording. And so you're always available through Google Voice and for free. And lastly, this is more of a tip than a software app. I recommend, if you haven't already, set up a single email that everyone can use that wants to reach all your board members. Set up a Gmail, or if you have your own URL, a specific board email, such as board at whatever your JGS name is, .org, and it will automatically auto forward, set it up that way to the full list of all your board members. So then you only have one address to type when you want to get something out to the whole board instead of 6 or 10 addresses. And it eliminates typos in the email addresses and the need to remember all of the board's individual emails. So that's it in summary. I'm hoping you're intrigued to try at least one of these tools for your society. I personally like starting with the Strengthening Your Visual Identity, and that helps you to promote your society and attract new members, and more new members means the likelihood that you'll attract more volunteers, and the larger and more complex your organization grows, the greater the need to operate efficiently and to manage it all with less time and effort. But really, start anywhere. You can start anywhere, but what is most important is to start. So I'll take Q&A. We've done a partial dip into Canva. We talked about a lot of tools. If you have any specific tools, and maybe not a question, but something to share, a specific tool that has worked well for you or one that you found problematic, please share that as well. Ken?
Marlis, thank you. We are running short on time, so we'll have to be quick. Do you have an opinion on Wix versus WordPress for a website?
I would try to bite the bullet and go right to WordPress, because there are so many more users and so many more tools that it integrates with versus Wix. Some people may be a little bit intimidated by WordPress, but you know, Wix is better than nothing. Let me put it that way. It is more visual. It is more drag and drop. Okay.
Does MailChimp have a free version for not-for-profits?
Yes, it does. And their Constant Contact does as well, and their pricing models, I think last I looked, are a little bit different. Why I prefer MailChimp, one of the reasons is their pricing model. Up to 2,000 people in your contact list is free, and very few of our societies have more than 2,000 prospects or existing members, and it does not count how many messages you send out.
Right. Does MailChimp support a mailing list as Constant Contact does?
Absolutely. And you can segment it. What you want to do ideally is just have one mailing list because of the 2,000. You don't want to replicate people, but then you can segment them based on different criteria, and you can tag also. So you can basically send out to partial groups within that, or subgroups within that list as well. Absolutely. And it integrates with Salesforce. It integrates with WordPress and some of the other tools that I've talked about.
Okay, we have a comment that the JGS of Illinois uses Wild Apricot for website, database storage, membership dues, payment, and more. Do you have a comment, opinion on that?
Yeah, it is kind of that all-in-one, which can be wonderful, and I'm hoping they're still having good results with that. That may be a good solution for, I'll say, more of kind of a mid-range size JGS.
All right.
Okay, well,
Yep.
we are down to our last minute on my watch. Marlis, I want to thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. There's a lot of material there. I would urge everyone, if you have not, download Marlis's handouts. There will also be a recording of this session available. I think there's so much here, you're going to have to go back and digest it in small pieces. But Marlis, thank you. As I knew you would. You did a wonderful job. I want to thank all of you for attending. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. Stay well.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. If you didn't get your question answered in time, send me an email.